talking on Piers Morgan against Michael Knowles?
Yes.
Yes. So that is a perfect example where if you were to ask Kyle, and he may have even said this actually.
He did. He did a reaction video to it.
Yeah, where he's like, why would I be good faith to someone who is just going to completely only take their side 100% of the time and is not actually interested in the conversation? At this
Mhm.
point, the thing I should do is just call them out and let the audience know that they are a grifter, someone who's not actually interested in furthering the country in any kind of positive way,
Yeah.
or at least in doing so, never admits when they're wrong.
Yeah.
So that's actually something I've changed my mind on as of like literally within the past month because I saw somebody reacting to Kyle and I was like, man, I don't know about Michael Knowles that much, so I can't comment on what he's doing with him specifically, but I can see where he's coming from for sure.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, for sure. I think it's really important to be able to have conversations, to be able to have good faith dialogue, even if you vehemently disagree, and to be able to at least be respectful. And I even think like a part of the Christian framework, a part of the Christian ethic, it doesn't model um, Jesus to be that blatantly disrespectful or to just talk over people or to dominate kind of the conversation. And so I feel like it's even incompatible, even if you want to take, a super fundamentalist Christian and say, well, I'm defending the faith and I'm, doing this bold, noble thing for, my faith. I still think that it falls short from even the example of Jesus and the teachings of our faith and the way that, we engage in those kind of conversations. And so it's always funny to me to watch people lay the core teachings of Christianity down for the sake of, well, I was in an argument or I was doing this or, and so I think it is very, very interesting. And I do think people who are aggressive as they advocate for positions find that, man, I don't feel like I did a good job in being able to articulate it. It's like, well, yeah, because you talked over everybody the entire time. So I feel like, a lot of times people walk away, and sometimes, especially on, especially on um, the people who are being the aggressive party in a debate or a conversation, a lot of time, that is the win in and of itself of look at how I owned them. I talked over them. I didn't let them get a word out, like all that stuff. So it's weird how people take those things as kind of badges of honor as well. So super interesting.
yeah, I mean, I think the whole badge of honor thing and what is considered as coming on top is a little bit nuanced because I actually don't necessarily think um I think you could either say that either some aggression is fine or there's a difference between aggressiveness and assertiveness. For example, there's certain things that I'm going to be very passionate about, and there may be even a few times in the conversation that I interrupt. I think the key is just like, can you be passionate, but have the characteristics that show your good faith and you know what you're talking about. So can you be consistent? Can you be someone who's like actually listening to the other point of view and can summarize it? Because the thing is, if I can summarize someone's point of view
Mm-hmm.
and know exactly what it is, I don't think there's anything wrong with being aggressive and assertive and going at it
Oh yeah,
necessarily.
no,
Because you
absolutely.
can be like I think if I understand what you're saying, I can still say, I think what you're saying is really fucking stupid. But there's a huge difference between that and then the other end of it, which is like, well, wait a second. You can't even summarize what I'm saying. So that means you're not even like you're not even critiquing my perspective. You're critiquing what you think is my perspective.
Yeah,
And those are vastly different things. Now,
yeah,
obviously, aside from all that, the goal is always going to be, don't get there. Have a conversation where it's like it can be cordial.
mm-hmm.
But I mean, the reality is that doesn't always happen sometimes. So you have to figure out ways to navigate based on who you're talking to.
Yeah,
I mean, this, but just in some of our conversations.
yep,
I think I'm a pretty good faith listener, but also I have no problem speaking up about, what I think the Christian perspective is on gay marriage and how I find that to be absurd.
yeah,
But there's a difference
yeah.
between those types. You understand what I'm saying.
Well,
There's a
there.
difference between good faith assertiveness
Mhm.
and bad faith aggression.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and I think like the you kind of hit it on the head. Like the minute that you begin to articulate what somebody else believes, then you're starting to strawman things. Now, you can naturally in a conversation, you can misinterpret or mishear somebody and need to be checked on it or whatever. Like, but if you are intentionally trying to strawman somebody simply for the sake of, man, my argument, I feel like is better suited if I can kind of lessen, what somebody else is saying. I think that's the other difference as well, because there are times just naturally in conversations where, you don't stop enough to be able to say, wait, am I hearing this correctly? To be able to summarize. And then you end up moving forward and you're like, wait, hold on. Which again, we've modeled that even of like, hey, hold on. That's not what I said. That's not what I meant. Those kind of
yeah, yeah.
things. But again, it all comes back to what's the intentionality behind it, and what are you trying to articulate in those kind of conversations.
Yeah, and a big part of it too, I think that people it's easy to miss is not just that, wait, do I understand what you say? But if you really want to go further than that, I think this is super important in relationships, especially romantic relationships, but even friendships, really any relationship. Obviously, it's going to be more important the closer people are to you with
Yeah,
any other
yeah.
relationship. But the idea that um, not only just take understanding their words and saying, "Do I get you?" but also understanding good intent,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because but my thing with people who I'm close to is always like, I know you. So if you say something that I find to be insane, my first reaction is going to be, well, that sounds a little insane. But I'm going to couple it with, like, at the same time, it's going to be, well, wait a second. I know that this person displays good behavior on a consistent basis.
Mm-hmm.
So first I'm gonna like try to drag that out of them to say, like, are you sure you mean that? Like, here's how it's coming across. Here's what
Mm-hmm.
that means. I can just think of like, I don't know, you could there's probably like a tons of examples we could come up with this, but if I have someone who
Oh,
um oh, your screen just went black. I can't
yeah. I
see you.
think my camera just died. You can keep talking. I'll work on fixing it.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, no, I was just gonna say that I think if you have a situation where, I don't know, say you had some friend who this is kind of a this might be a silly example, but I was just talking to one of my family members about this, so it's on my mind. If you had someone who you knew was really passionate about like animal welfare, and then you found out that like they were vegan, and then you found out that, I don't know, they like somebody told you like, oh my gosh, they had a hamburger or something. It wouldn't be reasonable to assume like, oh, your friend did that on purpose. It's like, well, no, why did they have it? Like, was it they were probably having some kind of like a health issue where they had to eat immediately, or they thought it was some kind of like vegan burger or something. Like, that person wouldn't intend to do that. So your first reaction is going to be, oh my gosh, my friend's a horrible person. Your first reaction is going to be like, well, let me see what's going on here because I know this person isn't like this at the core. So
No, that's exactly it, and it's being able to recognize that. So sorry about my camera, but yeah, it's being able to see, where those inconsistencies are and why they're there, because it might not be that there's a bad argument per se, you know, or that they're being hypocritical or whatever. It might genuinely be something that has a greater explanation to it.
for sure. I will say on the other side of that too, there are, I think, reasons to be suspicious. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with saying like, observing how people have come up, how they've likely received information, and then approaching the conversation that way. So for me, this would, I mean, we don't have to get into this. This would be like probably a million hour debate if we got into it fully. But for me, that comes up a lot when I'm talking to some Christians because, I mean, it's just, I would just be shocked if this isn't a fact. So I'll just say it as a fact. It's just a fact that there are many Christians who have just been Christians since they were children, and they've not done any critical analysis of the text. They haven't done any kind of looking into what like Christian historians say. And so they're just believing what they believe, essentially building upon what they were told as a child and their feelings about the matter. I'm not saying feelings are bad, but feelings can't be the only thing when deciding truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
In fact, it probably should take a back door in a lot of cases.
Yep.
So I just say that to say, I think on one hand, it's definitely true that you have to say, like, oh, I'll take this person in good faith. But on the other hand, there are situations where it's like, I'm taking you in good faith, but I also think you might be blinded to certain things. And I think that's fine too. It's all about a balance. So, when it's an interesting time right now, specifically with politics,
Hmm.
because the obvious critique from some people on the left, like someone like Destiny would probably say, well, I don't watch much anymore, but I don't watch them. I just come across clips. Maybe
Yeah.
occasionally I'll watch a short or something. But he would say something like, I don't really care that all these conservatives are mad at me because you guys he would say, you guys spent years going after like Paul Pelosi or like making fun of that situation. You called
Yep.
Democrats the
That's
worst
exactly
names
it.
in the books. You did all this shit. So it's like, who are you to tell me what I'm doing is wrong? And who are these moderators to be like, well, Destiny, can't you just admit that it's wrong? And he's like, why the fuck would I kowtow to this? Like,
Yeah.
so I mean, it's just a balance. But politically, yeah, I don't know. At some point, I hope we move away from tribalism. What it actually reminds me of? Do you remember how I think we had this conversation? How my feelings on things like TikTok and being raised on social media and all that,
Hmm.
the Gen Z kids that are going through that right now, the hopeful stance is that they realize the negative sides of that.
Yep.
And instead of it getting worse, like some people might predict, it actually gets better because they went through so many negative things. And on the other end of that, they're going to be like, I'm not cheating my children this way.
Yeah.
Hopefully that happens with politics too, where when Trump's gone, whoever comes next, JD Vance, or maybe even before then or a little after then, hopefully there's some point where people come up and they're like, I can't believe we just did this for so long.
Hmm.
Like I genuinely cannot believe that we acted like this, or who's more to blame is a conversation would be open to. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a really interesting perspective, and yeah, it's definitely something that we're gonna have to reckon with eventually. I feel like social relationships, just in general, whether you're having conversations or debating things in particular, those kind of conversations have gotten to a spot where it's really toxic, and people are just stepping away from them as opposed to actually engaging them because they're too much work. And so I think people are going to have to rediscover um, the value of doing the work to be able to have those kind of conversations again, to be able to fight through, um, to be able to fight through personal feelings, to be able to fight through, the nuanced kind of things, and go, no, we're just gonna have the conversation, and whether that means that it might be awkward for a little bit, then that's fine. So
I actually don't quite agree with that. I
hmm,
think that what's more so the problem is actually opposite. The problem is that people are politically involved more, but they're not involved in a nuanced way. So like well, I shouldn't reveal that information about this friend.
you're good.
So we'll put that to the side. But anyway, God, that would be so bad if I just said it. Just laughing at how bad it would be if I said that. Um,
And then their social security number was.
yeah, yeah. No, but yeah, so I think a bigger problem is actually, and I would, to be fair, this is something that you could probably just look at the data on to
Yeah.
see more or less voters. But if I recall, I thought the Trump election saw, like the last two Trump elections saw more voters per se, like just in general. So anyway, I don't know if that's right, but if that is right, that would, I think, possibly prove what I'm
It
saying.
was definitely more
But
than
again, the issue
2020 for sure.
the issue is that they're so engaged in a manner that I would guess is based way more on emotion than any kind of logical analysis. And
Mm.
again, emotion isn't bad, But when you talk about emotion, it always should be filtered in politics through some kind of lens of logic, right? It just has to be. Otherwise, you're in this state of being uninformed and you got two people yelling at each other who, to be honest, like Trump said about Iran, you got two people that don't know what the fuck they're doing. He said that about Israel and Iran.
Mhm.
But so I think that's more of a problem for me that I would worry about is that the engagement is getting so entwined with I don't know if this is the right word, but almost like hedonistic.
Mm.
Like it's just like want to satisfy my side, satisfy my emotions. And I'm not saying anybody again, some of these people probably mean amazingly well, but
Sorry.
it's you can't analyze politics like that. So hopefully we can move to a place where things are going to be more of a critical analysis because the reality is politicians are a reflection of what the people want
Yeah.
in a system where there's voting. They
Yeah.
just are. And so if you want smarter politicians, then you need to be smarter citizens.
Mm. Yeah.
And that doesn't absolve them of the politicians of their responsibility, of course, but
Mhm.
it's essentially a market. If you display wanting a certain things, the people who have to please that are going to do what they want to please that
Yeah.
or what they have to do to please that. So,
Yeah.
like I said, hopefully that doesn't happen. Um, but we'll see. We'll see. That actually leads me into something else. I was actually talking about a family member with this animal welfare stuff,
Yeah.
and I was telling him, I actually think part of the problem with bigger problems in general are not that people don't care; it's that they care, but either they don't pay attention
Mm.
or they either real or perceived don't have the time for it in their day.
Yeah.
So again, I'll go back to animal welfare just because this is something I'm very passionate about. I genuinely don't think that people don't care about how animals are treated. If you
Mhm.
ask 99% of people, do you think animals should suffer unnecessarily? No, because they understand they have some kind of it appears that they have some kind of conscious experience generally with
Yeah.
chickens,
Yeah.
cows, pigs, that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. But then if you look at people's shopping habits, they don't give a shit. I mean, they just I'd guess they would just pick like the cheapest thing. They don't care how it's raised, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's a result of not caring. I think it's a result of maybe it is to some degree, or if it is, it's a result of not paying attention.
Mhm.
Because I don't think you can like know that kind of thing. I don't think you can have knowledge of what some factory farms do and pay attention to that stuff day after day, week after week, and then follow that up with, yeah, but I want to save $3. I don't think rational humans do that. And if they do more than I realize, that's extremely disappointing.
Mhm.
But I think it's more sort of a result of I don't think it's a not caring. It's a I'm not paying attention. And to be fair, you can't pay attention to everything.
Yeah.
I always tell people everybody should pick at least 2 things. Doesn't matter what it is. It could be an animal welfare, workers' rights,
Yeah.
something to do with, the environment, conservation. There's a million things,
Yeah.
disabilities, mental health, whatever it is. Pick at least 2 things. I guarantee you there's 30 minutes that you're spending on Netflix that you could spend thinking about how to make that better. Like,
Mhm.
there just is, and then that can make you feel like you're a part of something bigger than yourself. And this is something we actually probably agree on in different ways. We agree on. I think you kind of have to have something that's bigger than you in order to move you forward.
Yeah.
I don't think you can live a life of hedonism and expect to be genuinely, meaningfully happy.